I am Musa Okwonga and co-host and co-founder of the Stadio Football Podcast, and I'm based in Berlin, Germany. Been here for 14 years.
Cool. So how's this World Cup being anticipated by German fans?
I don't think it is. Like, no, not that sounds like a weird thing to say. Um, there isn't as much clamour around it as you might expect leading up to the World Cup. I think the relationship with the national team is not as strong as it was going to the 2014 World Cup, which obviously Germany won. There is room for optimism, but I don't think there is wild hope. I think that's fair to say.
Is there any difference between fans and media that you're noticing? Or
Uh, there's always a difference in fan and media because media, I think, are kind of they tend to be less optimistic and more out to get individuals. And to be fair to the media, the Germany national team has not, the men's team hasn't made it that easy for themselves because their qualification campaign wasn't that glorious, and some of their key players aren't in the best form. Having said all that, there's still a lot of room for optimism, and sometimes lowered expectations can result in, I think, better performances.
what's your personal excitement and or trepidation of a World Cup being hosted not exclusively by the United States, but mainly by the United States?
Oh, oh my goodness, where do I start? Where do I finish? I'm concerned about many things. I'm concerned about the general atmosphere of growing authoritarianism, the ticket prices, the transport prices, the travel for the players, which I think will be an extra opponent in this tournament, given the territories they're expected to cover. Is Algeria are covering like sort of 5,000 kilometer round trips between games, so that's going to be wild. Yeah, I'm concerned about all of that, and just player fatigue too after such a long, grueling season. And then we're putting intercontinental travel on top of that. It's not ideal, is it? It's not ideal.
It's interesting, like within the last week, not to date the record, but Spirit Airlines just died. I wonder how many people had the idea of I'm going to fly from here to there on an affordable airline, and poof, there goes that one.
Because of fuel costs, right? Because of a conflict induced by one of the host nations, like a tire it was on, and that was a company that had not posted a loss in decades. Was it Chad Ochocinco, the NFL player? He used to fly Spirit the whole time. That's how he saved all his money. Yeah. Like it's an American institution and it's gone. Like wild, absolutely wild.
Never lost a flight. Very interesting.
Unreal, man. Unreal.
So I've been asking people to play TV Doctor for me and
Mm,
assess the state of the country that we're discussing. Is
mm.
German football in a healthy place or a non-healthy place? And I mean that domestically and the ability to export players.
Oh, define healthy in domestic context. Do you mean healthy as in like the stadiums are full, people are going to games and enjoying the atmosphere? German football culture has been great for decades. It's been a forerunner in that sense. The second division, the equivalent of the championship, Zweite Bundesliga, is fantastic. It's phenomenal. Schalke just came back. One of the great giants returned. One of the most entertaining competitive leagues in world football. The top division, I suppose you say, suffers from a lack of competition because Bayern Munich have again run away with it. I mean, that is an all-time great attack they've got. It's like 116 goals in the league so far. So in that sense, there is, I suppose, a conflict in terms of like pure entertainment, but still some great stories coming out of there. I think if I'm going to be critical, you might argue that some of the young German players who've gone abroad in recent years haven't made the impact of those before them. So Florian Wirtz struggling at Liverpool, but that's to be expected with a huge price tag. Voltemade, great start at Newcastle and then subsiding. And then even some of the players who come from the Bundesliga, like Omar Marmoush, started off beautifully at City and then kind of is being benched regularly. So I think maybe there's a question over quality at the moment, but I'm confident that those players will come good. I'm confident.
Where did the players come from in Germany mostly? Like, and how are they developed? I'm curious about this question.
Okay, well, it's funny you should ask because Borussia Mönchengladbach has long been a team that's been prided for incredible youth development. They almost went down this year. They just survived thanks to a 1-0 win over Dortmund in the derby, the local derby. I think the strength of Gladbach in its youth output is a good indication of the strength of German football at a youth level. And currently, Gladbach didn't sell that well. They didn't reinvest that well. So I think at that level, structurally, German football is taking a bit of a sideways step, maybe even slightly backwards. Again, I'm confident it'll move forwards, but the talent normally comes from places like that. Nordrhein-Westfalen, really strong. Dortmund, of course, right in the mix. And Leverkusen, just a great place for young players to bed in. And I will say this as well, in the defense of German football, some of the best coaching you will find anywhere in the world. I think this is one thing that Germany reliably exports quite well. Urs Fischer, spectacular coach, now at Mainz, Union Berlin before. Union, of course, promoting from within very well. Marco Rosa just got a great job at Bournemouth. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of faith. And also Olli Glasner as well, obviously an Austrian, but in terms of the German football ecosystem, he came through that. And yeah, the quality of coaching in the Bundesliga is exceptional.
You wouldn't say, is Germany like, you know how in France the players come from Paris or the Parisian suburbs? In England, you might say there's a lot of players that come from London. Does Berlin have a hold of the footballing talent? Like, is that where you go to get players, or
No.
or is it not like that?
Berlin's an oddity because Berlin is like, it's got great football teams, but it's not a football city. Like, if football left Berlin tomorrow, it wouldn't be as big a thing if football left London tomorrow. It's just has a different identity and character. What German football did a few years ago was it really expanded its scouting quite dramatically. And if it hadn't, there's a famous story about how it wouldn't have picked up Toni Kroos if they hadn't expanded their scouting network to the parts of the East, because he's from a place called Greifswald in the east of Germany. And they expanded their scouting there, and thank God they caught him. So I think German football, I think at the grassroots has traditionally been quite strong, but what it's done really well in the last few years is it's managed to connect the grassroots with the DFB, because the amateur pyramid scheme is really, really, I mean, one of the few places where pyramid scheme is a good thing, but the amateur pyramid scheme in German football is really strong. And that's why you get quite often, very, very strong teams from lower divisions knocking out, Bundesliga teams in the Pokal and the German Cup.
Cool. So let's talk about qualification. How did Germany qualify? How easy or not easy was it? And what has the federation done post-qualification in preparation? Actually, I know they're going to be a few miles away at Wake Forest University in North Carolina.
Tim Duncan
that's going to, yes, that's going to be or Chris Paul, if we want to be more recent. Jeff Teague.
Tim, we don't forget you. Yeah, the Teague podcast. Listen, shout out to that podcast.
But yeah, talk about qualification if you know.
So qualification, anxious start, to be honest. 2-0 defeat to Slovakia in Bratislava. And then a couple of wins over Northern Ireland and Luxembourg, but the Northern Ireland win wasn't that great. There was still some anxiety in both versions of that, home and away of the Northern Ireland tie. They won 6-0 in the final game against Slovakia, and they looked spectacular. They'd ironed out a lot of problems, and they looked a little bit like the best Germany team you could imagine. Extreme speed, counter-attacking, great technique. Gnabry in the mix throughout the campaign. He'll be a huge loss with his injury. He was looking really good for Bayern and Germany. So it looks like we're out this tournament. That's a really big loss for them. But I suppose the benefit is watching Florian Wirtz being spectacular in the late stages of that campaign and also in some of the friendlies. I mean, he was great against Switzerland. So I think if the federation's done anything, it's got to find a replacement for Gnabry. That's the big challenge. It's got to get Voltemade scoring again. A lot of this is going to hinge around how Musiala really returns from injury, because he's been out for a lot of the season. Not a bad thing, actually, because he'll be fresh for the World Cup. And Kai Havertz as well, who's looked good in flashes, but needs to find his scoring touch. I was saying earlier that to some friends online that Kai Havertz has the potential to be a kind of Thomas Müller, not as good because who is as good as Müller, but he's kind of the Thomas Müller figure in this Germany national side, but he has to find his scoring touch, and soon.
Is there still a bad taste lingering from 2022 and how bad that was, or is that more or less gone and forgotten?
I think that because Germany was so good at the Euros, I mean, in my opinion, they were the best team at the Euros. I think Spain were lucky to squeeze past them, actually. I think if Cucurella has that handball given against him, for the penalty, it's a different result. Toni Kroos was spectacular once Pedri went off in that game, and I think they ran that game. If Kai Havertz hadn't lobbed it onto the roof of the net, instead of putting it in, I think Spain go out. So I think that the 2024 and also I think the quality of the performances of the Germany players in the Bayern Munich team, which has been great this year. I think it's given fans a great cause for optimism. So yeah, I think 22. I think it's safely in the rearview mirror.
So normally when I think of top managerial international appointments, it's kind of like the old heads that have kind of gotten frustrated with club football. So there's always the rumors of Pep is going to go here, Mourinho's going to go there. We see Carlo and maybe Tuchel. How is it that a 30-something-year-old prodigious coach like Julian Nagelsmann, why is he managing the national team at this stage? And maybe that's just my own editorialization of his
No,
career.
it's a great question. Like, he's a genius. Like, he's a genius. This guy, how the hell are you managing Bayern Munich in your mid-30s? I mean, companies in his late 30s.
It seems weird.
It is weird because company played at the very highest level, right? So that's different. I mean, at least company, people look at him and go, right, well, I saw that guy score from 30 yards in a Premier League decider. Like, they saw that guy in a title race. So Vincent Kompany is 40, but he's like an old 40. Nagelsmann is like a tech bro. Like in terms of like his. But the thing I will say about this is my friends who are Bayern fans, they still lament his sacking by Bayern Munich. They were like, he was the one. He was the right guy. He's Bavarian, loved the club, was brilliant in his ideas, and was doing really exciting things. And just, he is a genius. I think maybe he'd already had a bit too much of club football by that point. He'd always chosen his own path. I mean, look how accelerated his development is. He's always been ahead of the curve. And I think he was ahead of the curve in the sense that in the same way that old heads were picking like national teams to coach, I think he was like, well, this is where the juice is at. If you look at the game, Germany beat Hungary, I think it was at 2-0 in the Euros. And they had like a front four of like Wirtz, Gundogan, Havertz, and Musiala. And that front four was mind-blowing. It was unmarkable. Like, it was like science fiction. The patterns they were taking up, Gundogan dropping deep, Kroos pushing up, and then just overlapping. Like, it was as advanced anything you could get. And I think because they've got this incredible crop of young and older Germany players, Nagelsmann was probably thinking, do you know what? It's quite fun to manage a really talented group of players within specific constraints where I'm not going to get bothered by a sporting director, because fundamentally, like, if you've got like a set group of players, no one can interfere at executive level. And if you think about the Bayern sacking, what happened? Executive level got spooked and bounced him. That is not happening for the DFB. And he can have that job, I think, pretty much as long as he wants. So yeah, it's a great gig.
This wasn't a question on my list, but now I'm thinking about bad things. If you gave England the same kind of managerial kind of, I don't know, integrity, like if they had the same kind of ability to create coaches, is there ever a world in which an England manager is managing the German national team in the way that Tuchel is managing England? Like, would they ever do that culturally?
Would Germany ever appoint an English manager?
If English managers were good enough?
I think so. Like, I tell you why, because like German football clubs done some really innovative things, like let's be honest, giving Vincent Kompany the Bayern job. They gave a black guy the coaching job, and no one even talks about it. Like, if you think about it, no one mentions the fact that Vincent Kompany is black, and it's not because they're in denial, it's because he is so natural in that role. And they gave him the job. They gave a black guy who'd just been relegated the Bayern job. Like, think of how progressive that is as a hire. That is mind-blowing.
They did kind of stump. Like, he was like choice 7 though, wasn't he?
They gave him the job. They gave him the job. They gave him the job.
No, I'm happy we got one, but at the same time, it did take like 7 choices for you to stumble into a good decision.
Totally, but when is in recent history, the appointment of the Bayern coach has been chaotic. Look at Niko Kovac. Niko Kovac goes out the door, and then what happens? They win the treble in the season with Hansi Flick. Like, it's been chaotic, like, totally. I mean, maybe the job search was more public than usual, but Bayern were desperate. I mean, they could have lost that. They could and should have lost that title to Dortmund, which is unthinkable now if Dortmund hadn't screwed up last game of the season. So, look, I mean, I think that the Germany national team, the DFB, is more conservative, I think, than Bayern Munich, and there would be some backlash. But I think if the right coach came along and they were open to new ideas, and there was a crop of young players who'd worked with that coach and loved him, let's say an English manager coaches at Bayern Munich and is brilliant and wins like a Champions League, wins like, does a Jupp Heynckes, comes in, cleans things up, wins a league and Champions League double. And all the young players are like, he's incredible. We love working with him. He knows the German system. He speaks German really well. He settled in Cologne. Like, if there was all of that, they're like, come on, like he's a dual citizen at this point. I think there's a path for that. Actually, I think that there's enough people who are forward thinking in ironically quite a conservative setup who would go for it. Yeah.
All right. So Florian Wirtz, you mentioned him. He's had maybe a predictably rough time at Liverpool this season. But whenever you watch him for the national team, he does seem to have a little bit more pep in his step. What are your expectations for him this summer?
I think if they build the right team around him, then he will achieve liftoff. I think he is spectacular. I've often referred to him as a kind of German Roberto Baggio in terms of the style of play, the ability to initiate attacks and finish them. He's as good a finisher at his best as he is a playmaker, which is very, very rare for a 10. If you look at like traditional 10s, like Rui Costa, more differential and a little bit shot shy as well, but Wirtz is not shot shy. He can crank it from 30 yards. He's not afraid of that. And I think the quality of player he has around him, he's got an excellent chemistry with Jamal Musiala, combines well with Voltemada and with Sané. Like he knows where to find the speedy players. He plays well in combination when building up. And I think Pavlovic is going to be the key in all of this. Alexander Pavlovic, 21 years old. I was told by a friend, we were talking a couple of years ago, and he said, actually, if you look at his like wagon wheel, his stats and his pass completion, his playmaking, style, positional sense, there's a lot of similarities with Toni Kroos. It's the kind of thing you wouldn't say out loud 2 years ago because Kroos is Kroos. But you look at some of the recent performances in the Champions League and you're like, I absolutely see it. So I think Pavlovic performing well in the midfield unlocks Wirtz. And then I think it's really exciting for Germany.
So it's hard for me to discuss the German national team and not bring in Bayern. And we've kind of danced around it a little bit. So the generation of Neuer and Müller, that one's gone. And we would say that the replacements haven't been as good, certainly for the national team. And we're going to combine and maybe run it parallel with this. Like the best players for Bayern currently are English, French, Colombian. Am I making connections between the state of the national team and the nation's best team?
I would push back on that assessment because I think that like Jonathan Tah has been asked to do some pretty hairy one-on-one jobs in defending against some pretty elite opposition. And I think he will come into the tournament quite battle-hardened. Pavlovic, again, some of his playmaking in the Champions League has been spectacular. He's been in and out of the team, but company trusts him more and more. Musiala back from injury, and he is just the ace in the hole. He's come straight back into the starting 11, which says everything about how highly he's regarded. So I think there is a strong core there. Again, like, don't get me wrong, like the outstanding players consistently week in, week out are probably not German in the Bayern team.
I can negate my own question though, Musa. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
That's good. That's all good. No, go for it.
Lewandowski was Polish. Robin is Dutch. Ribéry was French. So Bayern always had like really good players up top that were not German, right?
It's a great question. What I like about the question, Daniel, is that like the best Bayern teams have that blend of like German teams, the German core with foreign players. Chelsea, similar, your own team, like a blend of an English core and then like foreign players that come in and give like a bit more diversity. So for example, and just make less predictable. So look at the great Chelseans and Mourinho, great example of that. Really strong core of English players, but also you've got like talent from all over the world. So I think the Bayern team has been of a great benefit to Nagelsmann, and he would be the first to admit that he owes company a bit of a debt there.
So, in your opinion, where do you trust the goals to come from this team? You've mentioned Voltemada, you've mentioned Havertz.
I think they catch. I just think, but World Cups are their own animal, right? Like, I just think that group of players get on really well, and someone's going to catch fire. I do have faith in that because their movement off the ball is so good. That's the thing. They just move so well. I think sometimes of Argentina in 2002 with Marcelo Bielsa, and they struggled to get their scoring together. And there's a game against Sweden, they draw 1-1. And I remember thinking, if Argentina, like, it's like 1-1 or 0-0, but if Argentina score twice in this game, they're going to destroy Sweden. They're going to go on and just run through this tournament. They never quite got it. I think what Germany need to do is have one game in this group stage where they just go to town. I don't know who that might be, because actually you've got like Cote d'Ivoire, Curacao, Ecuador. These teams are not clowns. But if Germany can have one game where it gets like a 2 or 3 goal margin, then it can achieve takeoff.
So let's talk floor. Let's talk ceiling. How bad can it be? How good can it be?
I expect them to make out the group. I do expect that. I think the floor, though, they could go out in the knockout round, the first knockout, only because it's chaotic. Anything can happen. And that defense is also suspect. There's a question over Germany's defense. Tar, Schlotterbeck, Rudiger. Some of those players have been injured, some are out of form. David Raum's got some goals in him, but I think that defensive configuration, it was a little bit wobbly actually in the qualifiers. So have they fixed that? Because Slovakia carved them open a couple of times a bit too easily, and so did Northern Ireland. So I think that the floor is low. Well, sorry, the floor is low because they could get out second round, but the ceiling actually, if Jamal Musiala and Wirtz turn it on, this is a quarterfinal team, and beyond that, then who knows?
Is it weird that Germany, maybe this even goes back to the very beginning questions that I gave you, like Germany normally go into a World Cup with the expectation that you have to win it. But because of the last few, obviously the Euros maybe aside, last few tournaments have been kind of rough to where they're not dark horses because they're Germany. But it's not, and it can't be a free hit either. They're in a weird space.
They're totally in a weird space. I think people understand they lost Kroos, Müller, Neuer. This is a big institutional memory they've lost. And some might argue this is maybe a tournament too early. If you look at like someone like Leonard Carl, for example, who's just a teenager, Leonard Carl will be in his early 20s next time the World Cup comes around. Kai Havertz in his 30s will just turn 30. Wirtz a bit older. Like all these players, I think, are maybe 4 years from the expectation that they will be like lifting a trophy. I think it's not a free hit. This is kind of like, you know, when Germany had that breakout year in 2006, all those brilliant young players, and like, you know, Philipp Lahm scoring the banger against Costa Rica. And then 2010, you had this kind of like young Germany, but mature Germany. I feel like this is Germany 2010.
Okay.
Young and mature, but maybe a tournament too early.
So I've got 2 more questions for you, Musa. Who's your pick to win the World Cup, or your picks to win the World Cup? Spain. You didn't even think.
Spain. Because Lamine's going to be fit again. Pedri's going to be right there. Gavi's going to be right there. The wingers, and they're smarter than before. What they did to Turkey, for those, Spain 6, Germany 0. If you see the opening goal they score against Turkey, it is terrifying because that is a good Turkey team who had to have a terrible qualifying process because all they did for the sin of finishing second to that Spain team, and what they did was absolutely, it was terrifying. That opening goal, I saw that and I thought, yeah, there's nobody else at the World Cup that has got that in their locker. So yeah, it's Spain, and then it's like Spain and everyone else.
To conclude our podcast, 2 Ugandans discussing Germany. Listen, question is...
We're not even the most prominent Ugandans talking about football because Mamdani's right there. He's cooked us. He's cooked us.
I got to get him on the podcast somehow. In any event, last question. Is there anything I haven't asked about Germany, German football culture, the German national team that you find particularly fun and interesting that you think people should know or might want to know?
I think anything you might not have asked. This will sound a little bit hipster, but a shout out to Fortuna Düsseldorf because they're in the 2nd division. They do a thing where they make match day tickets free on 5 match days. So you can go to a stadium with 40,000 fans for free. You have to obviously apply in time, but that was part of their scheme to really allow more people to come to football matches because, you know, the Bundesliga and the 2nd division, Zweite Bundesliga, they're not that affordable for match day fans. So yeah, shout out to Fortuna who are trying to do something a bit different. And like we always look at English football and go, well, it's just going to get more and more expensive. But Germany is always trying to buck the trend, and I think a big feature of its fan culture is trying to make it more affordable for the matchday fans. So yeah, shout out to Fortuna.
Indeed. Musa, where can people follow you in the podcast?
They can find the Stadio Football Podcast on all platforms. They can find me on Instagram at my surname OKWONGA and on Blue Sky at the same surname. At Blue Sky, I'm just doing my little boomer ranting. So don't find me on there.
All the links will be in the description. Musa, I thank you for taking the time, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
My name is Carl Ruiter, CARL RUITER, Ruiter. I work for the biggest local newspaper, Extra Curacao. I have a daily sports program podcast, Caliente de Vega. It's translated directly from Papiamento to English to In the Heat of the Game. All my socials are uses the same handle, Carl Ruiter.
Cool. Tell me how this World Cup is being anticipated in Curacao by Curacaoian fans in particular.
Something historic, something big, something that was deemed impossible, but we achieved it. It's a big celebration. Obviously, the first few months were every day, everybody talking. It got a little bit quiet for a while, but in the last 2 months, it's picking up. And I guess in the 2 months prior to the World Cup, it's going to heat up even more.
Yeah. I tend to find in these interviews that whenever I ask people about fans are super excited.
Yeah.
The glass is always half full. But then when I speak with journalists, there's always a bit of calm and reservation and let's temper things a bit. So how is this being covered by the media, by yourself and others? Is there still that optimism, or is there maybe a bit of like, hey, easy, this is going to be tough?
Yeah. First off, it's since the beginning, we knew after the draw, it won't be easy. You have a World Cup winner, multiple time World Cup winner in Germany. I'll say African powerhouse, Ivory Coast and Ecuador is up and coming South American team. That means it's tough, and we try to tell the general public, the fans, the diehards, it's our first time here in the World Cup. We need to explore, have fun, do our best, and let's see, because it won't be easy. It won't be easy. We have high hopes. For example, everybody in our qualification group, for example, the Jamaicans thought, hey, they're going to win 2 games against Curacao. Curacao won't be that strong a team, but we upset them. We upset Haiti in a early round qualifier. We won 5-1, meaning we could do things that nobody expects. But we know what we are playing against. It won't be easy, and we tend to tell the fans we need to be level-headed. Obviously, enjoy the moment of being the smallest nation ever to qualify for the World Cup, but we need to be obviously realistic within the what we can achieve as a national team.
What would you say is the overall condition of Curacaoian football? Is it in a healthy place? Is it in a good place? And I mean that both domestically, and then maybe the ability to export and also import players into the national team.
You know, that question is a great question. You know why? Because obviously everybody knows now we are a tiny island, 150,000 people living here, and we don't have professional leagues. We have amateur leagues, players that normally play that work as a doctor, as a in the supermarket, you name it. And then in the weekends they play the local leagues. It's, I'll say, like the like the president of the federation said when he was inducted as the president, he said, I have a vision to work on the federation as the whole football community on the island, to make it a model federation in the Caribbean. And I guess we are at the beginning of that. Before we qualified for the World Cup, we were in the beginning. We are, I tend to say, working towards that. And for example, yesterday, Barcelona great Irsto Stoichkov was here on the island with the project Football for Schools. That's something they, with help from the FIFA, the federation will try to make football bigger here on the island, more bigger, I'd say, because it's one of the biggest sports here on the island. Now with the qualification, it's growing even more. But with those types of projects, we're working towards the local football, and we have also plans for the youth setup, and also the women's football that's in the early phases of growing here on the island. And the national team, I guess the qualification for the World Cup is something very big. It's because we have the dynamic that our Curacao roots players normally are born in the Netherlands, and if they reach superstardom, they choose the Netherlands. But there's a gap because there's players that are not superstars, but they could play for Curacao, but they're tending to wait for the Netherlands. That means with the World Cup right now and opportunities in the future to reach a potential second World Cup, we could be at the beginning of being or achieving the number one spot as a Caribbean island qualifying for the World Cup. It's easier said than done, obviously, because you have Jamaica that's coming back, wants to go back to World Cup, Trinidad and Tobago, you have the Dominican that's playing very high level right now with players from the Spanish leagues. But that's what we could potentially reach if we play our cards right, and if the players that for the 2030 qualification are potentially coming, we could do that. And what we already have, young players that will be there for the 2030 qualification, it's achievable, let me say it like that.
Do you ever see a time when the national team will be filled with local homegrown players rather than having to import Dutch, or do you think it's always going to be a blend?
It will be a process because, like I said, we are amateurs here on the island, and playing against amateurs, the quality that's coming in from every Caribbean nation. Haiti also has players from the Ligue 1 in France. It's difficult, but I say it like this: we could potentially be, if we could play our cards right, export players, for example, to the MLS or regional leagues. It's possible because I think nobody knows this. We have a player, a Curacao-born player that plays in Inter Miami too. Jeremy Ortela. He trains with the first team, Inter Miami first team with Messi. He's a Curacao-born player. And that's an example I tend to explain to everyone. If Jeremy could have done that, went at a young age to the States and developed himself in high school, college, and signed with Inter Miami, we could potentially have a group of players that could potentially do that. And because the general consensus is that when a players from a young age is doing good, we tend to send them to the Netherlands and not in the region. We don't do that. We send them, and when they go to the Netherlands, if they reach superstardom, we lose them because they want to play for the Netherlands. And right. I always say, if we could explore the exporting players in the region, maybe not local born players, but not the local leagues, but but local born players that were exported in the region could be potentially coming in with the your base players, and then we can make a better national team with players that were born here, and also that are coming in from the Netherlands, etc.
So I'm curious about this one. Is football the number one sport in Curacao, or is it maybe baseball or cricket or one of the others? Like, what's the number one sport? Is it football?
It's right now, the last 34 years, it's definitely baseball. Uh, this year is one of the biggest sports years on the island ever, because the first Curacao-born player was inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame in the States, Andrew Jones. And also we have the World Cup, meaning it's big for us, sporting wise. And before the baseball was the number one, there was a time I wasn't born then we had a lot of great footballers that played. For example, we have the greatest Curacao-born player ever. He was a goalkeeper, Ergilio Hato. The national stadium is named after him. We call him the Pantera Negra, the Black Panther. The Black Panther, the movie, we have a legend, the Black Panther, Pantera Negra, Ergilio Hato. We played many games with our national team. At that time, the Curacao national team wasn't official. It was the Netherlands Antilles. We played friendlies in Europe against big nations. In the past, also we had big teams, Inter Milan, Santos. All those teams played here on the island. Football was big here on the island, but in the last 34 years, maybe baseball is number one. But they're very close to each other, because we have a lot of football fanatics here on the island. But baseball we have legends and players playing right now in the Major League Baseball that the young people are attracted to. They're seen as role models. But with a qualification to the World Cup, we've seen that football has increased within the youth sector here on the island.
Cool. So let's get into the qualification. What was Curacao's road to the World Cup? Was it easy? Was it difficult? And what's been their form since in friendlies and whatnot?
I'll say it was amazingly consistent. I'll say I start like that, because we went unbeaten and we played, like I said earlier, against Haiti. I was saying, okay, let's see if we could win potentially against Haiti in the second round, maybe in the third and final round, we could do something. And we won 5-1. And then we played the Gold Cup. And after the Gold Cup, I was saying, yeah, we could potentially. Let's see. Our group was formed: Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and Bermuda. The two biggest games were obviously at home against Jamaica and the last game in Kingston. But surprisingly, we played to a draw in the first game against Trinidad and Tobago. I was like, hey, we started off on a bad note. The draw against Trinidad. And after that, we won against Bermuda. And the biggest game was on the 10th of October against Jamaica at home. Jamaica was scared for that game. I'm going to tell you why. Many people don't know. Because it's a national holiday here on the island. Because on the 10th of October 2010, we reached autonomy within the Dutch kingdom. And we celebrate every 10th of October that day. And that the game was played on that day. There was festivities before. What?
Did you say 2010?
Yeah,
your independence is in 2010, October 2010.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Because Curacao played its first game officially as the Curacao national team in 2011. We qualified for the World Cup as a nation within our first 14 years as an official nation of the FIFA.
Wow, I did not know that. Oh, but I'm sorry. I was sorry to cut in, but normally, like when I'm speaking, like because my family's from Uganda, so we talk about the 1950s, the 1960s, the
Yeah.
1970s. You said 2010, so I was
Yes.
like, whoa.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. I'm
Because
sorry.
obviously we were part of the Netherlands Antilles. We were a nation, Curacao, Aruba, Bonaire, St. Martin, Saba, St. Eustatius. We were the Netherlands Antilles. Aruba went out first in the late 1980s, and then we were one of the last ones who stepped out. And then the FIFA uh, gave us our national team officially in 2011. We began as Curacao our path towards the qualification to the World Cup. Many people don't know that. Within 14, I guess that's also a record. I don't know. Maybe there's another, but in our region, I guess it's a record. Within 14 years of officially starting as a national team, we qualified to a World Cup.
But you were saying Jamaica was worried because you were playing on Independence Day, pretty much.
It's not that. It's seen as an Independence Day. It's
Okay.
but it's at the end of the day, it's a holiday. And what did our government do? They organized many festivities within the game, and Jamaica didn't know what hit them because the stadium was electric from the get-go. Music, people singing from the get-go, and mind you, there was here on the island. There's a big Jamaican presence, but they couldn't do nothing here because the people were living with the national team from the first day of training towards the game, and at the game nobody could hear nothing else than the Curacao people cheering on their team.
Cool. So you guys go through, as you say,
Yeah.
it took you 14 years. Talk to me about the manager and the style of play. What should we expect from this Curaçaoan team if they're playing at their best?
It's difficult to tell you this right now. I'm going to give you why, because obviously everybody knows Dick Advocate for family reasons stepped down, and Fred Ruiter was appointed as the head coach. Fred Ruiter was the first option before Advocate, but he stepped down when basically he needed to come and sign his contract as a manager. He had some conversations with his wife. His wife told him better not, and he said no. And then they appointed Dick Advocate, and it's a kind of full circle moment for him, I guess. And right now, we had 2 friendlies in Australia. We lost both, but since he was appointed, he said the list of players that played was actually made by Advocate before he stepped down, because he was planning obviously for those games, and he said he used those games as a chance to see the players in action, because he was very frank about this. He didn't know all the players, and after that, he said at the last press conference, now he has an idea what he has from his players. He saw them play into games, and now we could, in end of May, we could see something from Ruiter. Ruiter is known as a more offensive coach than Advocate. Advocate was very strong in forming his defense, disciplined in the with the ball. When losing the ball, he was strong with his players, go get the ball, and he played a very compact type of way. But Ruiter was known in his coaching days in the Netherlands as a more attacking-minded coach. But we'll see if he could implement that, or seeing the fact that he doesn't have a lot of time to change things, he needs basically to adapt to the national team and towards what Advocate was building in the 2 years he was here as the national team coach.
So, who are some players in the squad that we might know, and who are some that we might not know that you think are in a good moment that can maybe shine on that stage?
Okay. The most known one, I'll say, is Tai Chong. He was born here on the island. He left at a young age. He went to the Feyenoord youth system. He was signed by Manchester United at a young age. Injuries derailed his time at Manchester. He played. He was alone in Germany, Belgium. He played a couple of years in the Championship. He's a well-known player. We have Kenji Gore was also in the Manchester United youth system. He played a couple of years with very well-known Manchester United players. We have also our captain, Leandro Bacuna, Premier League experience, one of our leaders. We have also his little brother, Juninho, played also in the Premier League and the Championship in England. Eloy Room, our goalkeeper for more than 10, 12 years. He played in the MLS. He also played in PSV in the Netherlands and Vitesse in the Netherlands. We have Jurgen Locadia. Jurgen Locadia played in PSV. He was the record signing at the time for Brighton when he made the transfer to Brighton in the Premier League. He played in the MLS. He played in Germany. He played in China. He's playing right now for Miami FC in the USL in the USL in the United States alongside Eloy Room. Yeah, those are players, I guess. Some people, not all, know or can find where they play. But we also have Richetli Bazour. He was once a hot prospect from Ajax in the Netherlands. He played in Portugal. He played in Germany. He's playing right now in Turkey. He was voted a couple of years ago as the Eredivisie, the first division in the Netherlands, the Player of the Year. We have also Armando Bispo, the player that plays at the highest level in our national team, because he plays in PSV. They were crowned just recently champions of the Dutch Eredivisie, the first division, and he played obviously in the Champions League with PSV. He's one of our better known players and plays on a high level, playing Champions League football. It's obviously the highest level for a player.
Who's one name that you think the World Cup is going to be a good platform for them? Like, this player on the stage that the World Cup is going to play well enough to maybe get a move or something like that?
I'll say two of them for sure. Tai Chong, like I mentioned earlier, he's a great player, but injuries derailed his career. He missed a lot of time. He missed our last two qualifiers in the World Cup qualifiers for through injury. He's a special player, left foot. I say one of the best left foot I ever seen from a Curacao born player. If he could have a good World Cup, I guess he could do that. And Son Johansson, other one great player. He was a hot prospect in Ajax. He was the top goal scorer in the Under-17 World Cup in Brazil a couple years ago. He needs a big moment for a big move. He made the transfer to Middlesbrough in the Championship. It wasn't a good move because at first he was brought in to add depth to their attack, but after Middlesbrough began winning. He was injured. The coach didn't want to change his winning team. Till now, we are at the end of the championship, and he played a couple of games, I guess, since then. And we need him to, as a player that's.
It happened again. Yeah, there you go.
My wife's calling me. At the beginning, yeah, man. At the beginning, he was brought into Middlesbrough to add depth to the attack, but he got injured. The team began winning after he came back. The coach basically didn't give him a chance because they were winning. The team was winning, and he didn't play very much this season. And I guess if for a good World Cup and the quality I know he has, I guess it could help him get a good move so he could be a focal point, stay a focal point for the national team because he's still young. He has a lot of years left in the national team. I guess a good World Cup would give him a good transfer so he could play regularly and further develop himself.
I have 3 really quick questions left. I'm going to ask you to dream the best possible scenario for Curacao. How far can they go? Is it just getting out of the group? Is it getting a point, scoring a goal? Like, what's your best possible scenario for this team in this tournament?
I'm going to talk as a fan right now, not as a reporter. My dream is to reach the second round. That's the dream, man. If we do that, I guess we will have a month-long party, I guess. But speaking as a reporter, if we could manage a draw, I'll be more than happy. If we could get 2 points out of this group stage, I'm more than happy. But this team, this is what I was talking yesterday with a friend of mine who also follows the national team. This team showed us the last 2 years that when the odds are ever against them, then is the time they play or they get the biggest result yet. Because, for example, against Jamaica was at the top of the group when we played against them. Everybody was saying, if Jamaica wins, our World Cup dreams are shattered. We could not lose against Jamaica at home. We got the win. We played against Haiti. Haiti was doing well with Ligue 1 players from France. We didn't have all our best players. We won 5-1. We played against Canada, World Cup team that just played in the World Cup, the last World Cup. They have top players in Europe. We played to a draw in the Gold Cup, and also basically for me, that's personally the disallowed goal was actually a goal. We could have won against Canada, and that's what I'll tell everybody. I know it's gonna be hard. I know it but knowing these guys know when it's hard, when it's harder, they show up. They show out and show out.
1 word answer, maybe 2, depends on what you pick. Who's your pick to win the World Cup?
Pick to win the Cup. 1 or 2?
You can give me 2. You can give me 2.
Spain, or my friends are gonna kill me when they hear this. I'm gonna say it, Portugal.
Okay. Interesting. And the last question is there anything I haven't asked about Curaçaoian football, the culture on the island, anything that you think is interesting that people should know or might want to know?
I guess our language. That's also one personally, as a reporter, as a sports commentator, football commentator. Our language is one of the most beautiful languages. Because, for example, we tend to call ourselves UD Corso, the child of Curacao. It's a beautiful language. If you get to know it, you'll understand why. Because it's a melting pot of all the different language best known: English, Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish. And when you talk about papiamento, it's translated directly to talking, talking, and we are very proud of our native language. We are football fanatics. We live sports, football, baseball, you name it. Sports is something big for us here on the island, and we are very humble as a nation. We are very proud of every UD Corso that shines in the world, in sports, in music, and anything. We are a very proud nation, and we will be very proud when our national anthem is playing on the 14th of June in Houston, Texas. We will sing with our hearts out. I know personally that I'm gonna cry. Uh, I'll say it openly because it's the biggest sporting moment, and I lived it. I was in Kingston when we qualified, and God permitting, I will be there on the 14th of June with my national team, singing my national anthem. And that's my dream. I want to be commentating. I don't know where, somebody hearing this, I want to be commentating about our national team. And obviously in English, I can do it also in Spanish, because that's also something I forgot. I can speak in Spanish. I could do an interview in English. Obviously, I did it right now. In Dutch, in Papiamento, I could do a little bit, not a lot, in French. We are very proud of the fact that we could speak different languages. And that's also something we're very, very proud of.
Carl, I thank you for taking the time to do this, man. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.